We apologize. The Rolling Stones apparently not available today.
That's okay. They'll be back.
Well, that's a really loud ring.
Hello?
I'm looking for the wonderful Scott Taylor from Game On Magazine.
I don't get wonderful very often.
Well, you do on this show.
All the time.
Although,
I'm the world's luckiest guy.
Well, look. Let's talk about that game last night. You weren't in the building. Were you there last night?
I was in the building. Yes, indeed.
Well, it gets out to that 3-0 start. After the third goal, did you think there was a temptation to pull Hellebuyck?
No, not after the first period. If it had gone on and been 4 or 5, yes, but not at the end of the first. Maurice was not going to yank him after one period. No.
Well, and I said quite honestly, because I had to do yard work with my wife. You know how fun that is. I'm going to start taking crack. I got to start doing something. I need to take.
You make me laugh.
Yeah, I got to do some stuff. But I thought, well, 3-0 in the first period says to me, whatever weirdness had gone on, that at some point there's going to be a market correction. There was big time. Now the score looks ridiculous because of the pulling the goal 7-4, but I'm looking at that game overall and thinking, if there was a team that really believes in itself, if the other team is actually the President's Trophy winner, it's got to be the Winnipeg Jets. And I still think if I'm looking at all the playoffs, and I said it earlier on, I consider them to be legit contenders to win the Stanley Cup.
I've considered them legit contenders to win the Stanley Cup since the end of January, when Mark Scheifele went down. And I think everybody here, including me, thought, they're in trouble now because he's the man. Scheifele goes down, and they all step up, and they're a better team. They have a better record. They go 11-2-1 with Scheifele out of the lineup. And at that point, the Winnipeg Jets are going to win the Stanley Cup. That's the best team in the NHL.
Scotty,
that was back in the first week of February.
Scotty, good to talk.
I mean, it didn't surprise me that they came back. It was a funny game in terms of power play timing. You know how you get power plays at kind of the right time to win games?
Right.
And Watson and Sharon had a real tough night last night. Like, they didn't really know what to do with all of the stick work. There was more slashing and high sticking and holding and slashing. And I mean, it was a besides Byfuglien running everybody, they had guys slashing people, and Subban was about the worst. And when he took that penalty at the end that eventually led to the winning goal, he whined pretty hard after in the Nashville locker room, but it was inevitable that it was going to happen. You can't keep playing like that and not expect the officials to finally say, okay, enough. We've seen enough. And that's kind of what happened last night. So those two back-to-back power plays at the end made a big, big difference in the outcome.
Certainly did.
It was a weird game in a lot of different ways, but I think in terms of timing for power plays, because you know how it works in the NHL, it's the third period, it's late in the third period, these guys are not calling anything. And then bang, you had a penalty against Nashville, bang, a penalty against Winnipeg that ended up tying the game, and then two straight Nashville penalties back to back. And suddenly Winnipeg went from 0 for 1 on the power play to 1 for 5. And that's just, to me, for the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs, just a weird situation.
Yeah, it really is, Scotty. Good to talk to you this morning. Sorry for interrupting you. I as a guy that has followed Dustin Byfuglien from the Chicago days, Atlanta days, now with the Jets, he's not a younger player, but this Dustin Byfuglien that we're seeing in this postseason through the 5 games with Minnesota, the 3 games against Nashville, is this the Dustin Byfuglien Jet fans have been hoping for since the arrival of the team? Because there is so much talent there and so unique as far as being as big as a guy and what the guy can actually do. I think this is the best hockey he's played in his life.
Yeah, I think he's playing as well as he did when he helped Chicago win the Cup.
Yep.
He's the best player on the ice. He's certainly the best player on the ice last night by a mile. I think the thing about Byfuglien is and you get the impression when you deal with him on a daily or semi-daily basis that he's so extremely laid back, he's almost sleepwalking through this. But I've sensed over the last year that he's really an emotional player, and this crowd has him, I think, at the top of his game. The crowd last night was beyond human comprehension. I mean, it was just... I've never seen anything like it in any rink or any even football stadium or baseball park anywhere. It was just completely loopy. And when the Jets scored the first goal, you could sense everything was changing, and you could see Byfuglien's chest come out on the bench. Like he said, okay, we're back in this. Let's go, boys. And he was a different player, and they were all different players, and the crowd got into it. And Nashville was just shell-shocked, basically, in that second period. They don't know. They have still, to this day, this morning waking up, have no idea what hit them in the second period. And I think what hit them was 16,000 people just going berserk.
Well, Scott,
I mean, it was just a different atmosphere, and Byfuglien rose to the occasion with that atmosphere.
Scotty, I think that if I'm looking at the next game as, what would I call it? Oh, yeah, a degenerate gambler. I think if I'm...
There we are. That's us. Yep.
I'm looking at that next game. They're not getting those trickling little goals, and Hellebuck's not going to let that happen. There's not going to be a short-sighted goal. I mean, that's kind of your moment to hurt a team, when they're not playing at their best. But the reality is, if I'm looking at that next game, I'm seeing like a 3-1, 4-1 Jets win. I think the next game looks nothing like we saw last night, which was closer to 1985 than it was 2018.
Yeah. Another interesting part of that game that I think maybe set Nashville back on its heels is when Mark Scheifele came to the defense of Blake Wheeler.
Yep.
After Wheeler was headhunted by Austin Watson. And it was interesting, as I'm walking out of the rink, who's the first person I run into? Dale Howardchuk.
Oh, no.
The legend.
Yeah, Dale Howardchuk.
Oh.
And we got into a 15-minute conversation about Mark Scheifele and his character and the kind of kid he is. And Dale, being the modest Dale that he is, said, well, I didn't have a lot to do with it. That's the way he is. He's that kind of a hockey player. But when he stepped up and took on Watson, who's bigger than he is, and wrestled him to the ground and got the roughing penalty, which voided the power play, and you thought maybe for a second, oh, geez, he wrecked the power play. No, the Jets kind of just looked at it and said, okay, we're paying this guy back. And they scored 2 goals in, 18 seconds? Suddenly it's a 3-3 tie. Yep. And it was because Scheifele stepped up. And he's just a player at a different level. I mean, he's the first guy since Crosby to have multi-point games in 5 straight playoff games. He's just playing outstanding hockey, and with Byfuglien playing the way he is, and with Wheeler, who had a real tough first period and a real rough first 10 minutes of the second, but he never quit. He just kept playing and playing and playing, and finally scored 2 goals and looks like a superstar, and nobody remembers the first period. And suddenly you've got this team playing at the top of its game. I think there's a real chance that this Thursday night game could be 6-7-1.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just curious, Scotty, taking a look, and I talked a little bit about how I would rank these teams. And again, this is no bias of the regular season. As I said, you come from Mars, you're the third-party observer, you look down. If you had to rank the teams in the NHL playoffs, both conferences, 1 through 4, for you, what does that look like?
1 Winnipeg, 2 Washington, 3 Tampa, 4 Vegas.
Interesting.
And Vegas may not get there.
So you put Tampa in front of Vegas. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, because I'm not sure Vegas is going to get past San Jose. San Jose's big and strong and grindy. And Vegas doesn't like that very much.
Dave doesn't like Vegas.
Now,
he's
granted,
upset about
Vegas
it.
has a 2-1 lead now, and they won in overtime in San Jose, and they may come out of this thing in 5 straight. But San Jose's a different kind of animal. They're not very fast. They're very experienced. Some would say old. It's a completely different game from the San Jose side as opposed to the Vegas side, which is all go, 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 emotional, go, go. And if San Jose can slow them down over the next 3 or 4 games, then that could be a very, very interesting series. But I think if Tampa can beat Boston, I like Boston. I think they're a real nice team. But Tampa's got so much talent and pretty good goaltending. Vasilevsky's pretty good. And Pittsburgh and Washington, it's Washington's turn. You can see Ovi is a different human right now. I think Alex Ovechkin sees the end. It may not be next year or the year after that, but I think he sees the end as opposed to the beginning. And if he doesn't win a Stanley Cup soon, the great legacy of Alex Ovechkin may be tarnished somewhat. So he looks like a guy on a mission to me, and that whole team seems to be following him. It's like Byfuglien in Winnipeg or Scheifele in Winnipeg. It's like Marchand and Bergeron in Boston. These are guys that are just leading their teams and playing kind of above their pay grade. But I just like Winnipeg and Washington in the Stanley Cup final.
That would be interesting. Scott, I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday throughout the game, and he was asking about Patrik Laine, and I said, listen, the amount of opportunities this guy is getting and the amount of shots on goal, I think he's a ticking time bomb, and he's ready to explode on the score sheet. Do you see the same thing I'm seeing out there? Because I'm shocked that this guy has been left scoreless as far as goals are concerned, and as soon as he breaks through, I think the dam's not going to be able to repair itself.
There are two ticking time bombs on that Jets team. Patrik Laine is one, and Kyle Connor is the other.
Yes.
Kyle Connor should have 10 goals in this series. He should have had 3 last night. He gets a ton of chances, too, and he's been snake bit. He's been the victim of great saves, of posts. The two of them are getting so many chances that eventually it's going to go in if they keep finding themselves open like they are. I think the argument with Laine is that he's 6'5", and there's something wrong with his stick. I mean, he really has trouble controlling the puck, and I don't know what the problem is. But somebody sent him some bad sticks.
Yeah.
Connor, it's just bad luck. He should have a ton of goals. He's getting so many chances, and eventually it's all going to come together. I don't know when that's going to happen. I thought it might last night. But you're right about the chances. They're getting so many opportunities. At some point in time, the puck's going to start going in.
There's one thing about Winnipeg I don't like, and I'm going to say it.
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's this?
Love the whiteout.
Okay.
Love the. And by the way, I believe the whiteout was started in Winnipeg. I don't care what people say.
It was indeed, yeah.
It was Winnipeg. But those.
Rod Paulson was the ad agency guy who created it.
Okay, too much. Now, those people wearing those Asian-made troll masks with the Japanese or Korean writing. Look, I'm sorry, it's not racist. I just don't speak any of those languages. And they have the hair. Do you see the whitish blue, light blue troll hair with the weird mask face?
They do that everywhere, Mike.
No, that's got to go. Those people, just look. It's Western Canada. Just get a guy with cowboy boots coming, going, you two out. Let's go. Come on now, out. Get me some beer drinkers. Get me guys.
Whatever.
Get me the rum. Get me the rum drinkers. Maybe you know what I mean. Maybe a mid-drift. Maybe a Matt Dunnigan shirt or something. Get those two out of there and get some real people in there, and then I'm with it. But they got to go. Russell, do you have pictures? Are you looking for pictures of that?
Yeah,
because it's. I don't like it. I'd say something to him. Why don't you say something to him? You're a bigger guy. Get him out of there.
It's too much work to leave the press box without the elevator.
Hey, let me ask you something, because they had that great rum area in the old stadium. Did they carry it over? Where people
football?
Yes. Did they bring
They
them?
have 2 of them.
Oh no! I've got to go this summer. That's my one thing. I said to Dave, I got
There's
to go.
one at each end.
Oh.
There's 2 rum huts. No, but you watch a Bomber game and they'll say 32,000 people, and then you'll look on TV and you go, there's nobody there. No, they don't
So
sit their
true.
seats at the rum hut.
So true. Hey, Scott. Speaking.
To me, a Bomber game is you're paying $100 cover charge to buy $12 rum drinks.
How hard is it navigating in and out of that building as a guy that's, you go to the game early, you leave after? Is it still chaotic on the streets when you actually leave that game, considering that there's 30,000 people outside of the building just on Donald?
For the hockey rink?
Yes.
Not a problem for me. I left last night at 4:30 for a 7 o'clock start. Was in my parking spot by 4:45. It takes a couple of minutes to walk inside to the rink. It's great. Never have to go outside in Winnipeg. That's a wonderful thing. After the game, you go to the locker rooms, you write, you finish your story, you shoot the breeze with a couple of guys, steal some popcorn, and by the time you get back to your car, it's an hour later. Everybody's dispersed, and you get right out and you get home. The great thing about Winnipeg, and you've been here, I mean, David, you worked here.
Yep.
You can get anywhere in 20 minutes. I mean,
True.
Winnipeg's only 750,000 people, and that includes the whole capital region. When I moved out here, I asked somebody, is Winnipeg like a small Toronto, or is it a big Kitchener? And it's funny, Mark Scheifele asked the same question. Everybody told him the same thing. It's a big Kitchener.
Yeah, it's a big Kitchener.
It is.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Trust me, that's good.
It is. It's great.
Yeah.
So it takes me no time to get to the rink. And as long as I leave an hour after, which I'm going to leave anyway because I got to write my story, as long as I leave an hour after, there's not a soul left on the street except the few people at the Shark Club, right?
Yeah.
Scotty, before you go, I want to throw in a little football here. Obviously, saw the NFL draft. Baker Mayfield goes first. Now, I don't know how much of that you've seen, but did the draft surprise you in the quarterbacks and the order in which they went?
Well, no. Baker Mayfield is the guy who put the Oklahoma flag on the Ohio State logo after they blew them out, and he gets drafted by Cleveland. Cleveland makes more mistakes.
Yes.
I just, like, you draft a guy that your fans already hate, and are you going to start another rookie like the poor kid last year that you threw out there? You did nothing to improve your offensive line. I mean, nothing. So Baker Mayfield's going to go in there and get killed because he'll have no time to throw or do anything else. And you've lost Joe Thomas, so your best player is gone. You have no offensive line at all. These guys couldn't block your wife in heels. Honestly. It's just a horrible football team. The National Football League should do an investigation into the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield, instead of taking offensive linemen, is about as dumb as it gets. They should have signed Colin Kaepernick and got an offensive line. Baker Mayfield's going to go in there and be messed up just like DeShone Kizer was. And the best thing that ever happened to DeShone Kizer was he ended up being signed by Green Bay, so he gets to play behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought the draft was the Wyoming quarterback. It really was. I don't think the greatest draft of all time.
No, I definitely wouldn't call it that. I still
not even close.
I still like Sam Darnold going to the Jets. I think that's going to be interesting. But for Josh Rosen, this will be, considering the claim that he made. And I saw him playing UCLA.
Yes.
And to me, it was just there are times where. I
but
thought
they didn't beat anybody either.
No. So I think of the 4 quarterbacks, Darnold was number 1 for me. That was a number 1. But maybe he should be thankful he didn't go to Cleveland, like a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yes, for sure.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there. See, the other thing that I've learned since watching the Minnesota Vikings for 30 years, you could have anybody, Case Keenum, play quarterback and be successful if your offensive line is good. And they've had good quarterbacks get killed because the offensive line can't block anybody. Last year, they rebuilt the offensive line, and Mike Zimmer's done a great job with both his lines. But he rebuilt that offensive line, and Case Keenum suddenly becomes a multi-millionaire quarterback. But if he goes to a team that can't block, he's still the bad Case Keenum that was in Houston.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens in Denver this year for sure. Hey, Scotty, we got to run here. Thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. You take care, and we will talk to you again real soon, my friend.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye, guys. See you later.
That is Scott Taylor from Game On Magazine.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep.